Thank you, Chairman. The title of today's discussion, India-US relations at the crossroads, is quite provocative in a sense. But what I would like to ask myself is, why are we asking this question, whether this relationship is at the crossroads or not? It could be because disappointment is setting in on both sides. We have heard many say that the relationship has reached a plateau. We just heard Ambassador Surinder Kumar quote someone to say that it is in a coma. We are frequently told that we are not meeting each other's expectations. That the US corporate sector, earlier the strongest supporter of the relationship, is now in fact targeting and demonizing India. President Obama, again we heard Ambassador Surinder Kumar say that whatever limited interest he had in India has dissipated. Others say that he has taken his eyes off the India ball. Then there are those who say that the State Department doesn't have now political leaders and bureaucrats who are committed to the India relationship. Secretary Kerry certainly is not considered someone who has a vision of a strong India-US relationship. And the US think tanks and India specialists are disappointed because they feel that India has not responded adequately to US strategic overtures. Nick Burns was quoted, I think, to say that, you know, the relationship is like riding a bicycle. You have to keep pedaling, otherwise you'll fall off, etc., etc. There are still those who say that because economic growth in India has declined and therefore India's attractiveness has diminished, and that explains why we are having difficulties with the United States. And of course there is this whole question of the internal economic woes of the United States, this whole focus on jobs, etc., which explains why we are being targeted on the economic side. Now, I don't buy these arguments, and I'll explain why. First of all, I don't buy the argument that India is not delivering. Now, what does it mean that India is not delivering? Why do we have to deliver to anyone and meet other people's expectations of us? But if you really look at what we have delivered, let's take defense contracts. We heard so many panelists say that we have placed orders for $9 billion in the last 5 years. From a situation where we didn't trust the United States of America and we've had long experience of sanctions against us, it was a great leap of trust to actually buy American, knowing fully well that tomorrow, if these weapons are to be used in a conflict situation, you never know if somebody in the US Senate or Congress decides that an embargo should be imposed. The argument is that if you have a strong defense relationship, there will be hesitation on the US side to take this step. But can a country like India rely on this kind of an expectation that when it comes to the crunch, on the US side they will use common sense in terms of dealing with India? Our military exercises with the United States continue. In fact, the number is, the last that I knew about the number was 57 military exercises in all three services in the last few years, which is far larger than with any other country. And if you take Russia, for example, 70% of our equipment is from Russia, but we have held only 2-3 exercises with them in the last few years. Nuclear power plants. Now, I don't know what these unspoken part of the engagement was. I mean, in state-to-state relationship, I can't imagine that there are some unspoken I mean, if they're not spoken, they are not there. There's nothing like unspoken commitments that have been made. Now, for the United States to feel upset that they are not able to sell their nuclear power plants to India might be a problem in terms of their expectations that they'll get a substantial chunk of future orders. But the fact is that the nuclear liability law has been passed by Indian Parliament. It's not as if whimsically the government of India decided to pass this act and willfully stop the United States from having a share of the nuclear pie. Yes, the nuclear liability law has created a problem, but the US has now to approach this reality with an open mind. And then there is the larger problem, which is very serious and which is not being given adequate attention, that you have to have a market for the nuclear power that will be supplied by foreign-built nuclear power plants in the country. Are they likely to be affordable in terms of the consumer? Because all statistics show that they'll be very expensive. Now, this may raise larger questions of how we handle the costing of our energy. That's a different issue. But the fact is that compared to the cost of power from Indian nuclear power plants, the cost from the American nuclear power plants would be almost 3 times more. Now, insofar as declining growth rates being a factor in U.S. disappointment or taking the eye off the ball, now the U.S. is itself in a huge economic problem. Europe is not growing, Japan is not growing. So by this logic, we should take our eyes off the ball insofar as U.S. is concerned, or Japan is concerned, or Europe is concerned. Why is it that if India drops from 8% to 5%, suddenly India has become unattractive? It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, particularly if you see the discourse of the previous U.S. government, Hillary Clinton and others, and I've been asking myself the question, why is it that when the United States talks about strategic relationship with India, all the 35 dialogues that we are having are characterized as strategic dialogues, even where actually these are purely commercial. And the argument on the U.S. side was that we treat them as strategic because we want to build up India's economic capacities in all fields, in the process of building up India as a global power through transfer of technology, etc., etc. And then if you see this kind of a framework on the basis of which they were looking at India, then to say that on solar panels you have some local requirements, or the whole issue of preferred market access, etc., etc. After all, why do we want to build up a local manufacturing base, especially in the electronics industry? Because people will tell you that in the next, by 2020, we'll be importing maybe $500 billion worth of electronic goods. Now, this will be higher than our import bill of hydrocarbons. So should we not try and build a local manufacturing base? And if US is thinking strategically, US, then why are they cavilling at these small issues and taking us to the WTO and whatever else it is? In fact, India is being targeted by the National Association of Manufacturers in the United States with 50 business and advocacy organization urging the USTR to designate India as a priority foreign country under Special 301. Last time that the United States did that was in 1994. So there's a regression now that we are looking at. The US ITC will be doing a year-long investigation into India's trade, investment, and IPR policies, at the end of which there is a prospect of sanctions. And there's concern that India is actively promoting proposals in the World Intellectual Property Organization that would undermine global rules safeguarding ideas, brands, and inventions. The huge fuss is being made about compulsory licensing, and we heard that only 2 compulsory licenses have been given. And if the Supreme Court denied patent protection to Novartis, it was as a part of due process. It's not, again, that the government decided that for this or that reason we are going to take this step. And if the United States believes in due process, then why are they challenging the decision of the Supreme Court? After all, they fought the case right through the Supreme Court, and they should accept the decision. Now, when you talk about expectations, as I said, should it be a one-way street? We have our expectations too. and some of them were listed by by Mr. Rajiv Kumar. There is the immigration law, there is the visa restrictions, there is a totalization agreement. The trade policy group hasn't met for the last several years. There is the whole corseting of Pakistan that Ambassador Mansingh referred to. There is outreach to the Taliban. The most regressive force in our region is being tried to be accommodated in the power structure in Afghanistan, and that through the mediation of the Pakistan military, whose only instrument of retaining influence and power and actually disrupt future peace in Afghanistan is the Taliban. On Afghanistan, the United States is withdrawing. Yes, they are withdrawing. It is a sovereign right to do so, but they'll be leaving behind immense problems for us to deal with. On Iran, on any commonsensical basis, Iran is an important country for us in terms of energy security and other geopolitical reasons, but we've been squeezed very heavily on Iran by the United States, and we've gone along. We've gone along because even though our public position is that we are not going to accept the application extraterritorially of U.S. laws, but in fact, our banks, our private companies, our government does not want at all to, in the least way, be accused of violating U.S. law, U.S. sanctions, because of concern about the repercussions. And insofar as policies in the neighborhood are concerned, reference was made to the gap that is developing with regard to our thinking and U.S. thinking on Sri Lanka and on Pakistan, on Bangladesh. And of course, the China-Pakistan nuclear relationship is being ignored by the United States. Now, if Obama has taken the eyes off the ball, it is in the context of the 2010 statement that he made, which was referred to, the relationship with India is going to be one of the defining partnerships of the 21st century. Now, I can't understand in 4 years, or less than 4 years, a defining partnership of the 21st century has now become an unimportant partnership. Now, does it say something about us, or does it say something about the United States and its leaders and how policies are made there and what their global thinking is? This short-termism, if I may use the word, and the transactional nature of U.S. thinking towards India is, I think, the essential problem. Finally, Devyani Khobragade, I'm not going to spend much time on this. It has certainly had a very serious impact on the mental attitudes in India towards the United States. The great trust that was building up, and it was building up certainly, that has been eroded a great deal, and in policy-making circles. The U.S. press has come out very poorly insofar as reporting on this issue is concerned. Some people accuse, even in India, of India having been petty and small-minded. And that led me to think that if we had arrested a U.S. diplomat for violating our tax laws or for whatever else, then we would have acted as a strong power, as a respectable country. But if we withdraw privileges that the U.S. diplomats were not entitled to in any case, then we are being petty and small-minded. Now, we should be clear as to those who criticize should be clear that did they want us to actually impose reciprocity and do what the United States did to our diplomat. Nobody has spoken about the whole issue of evacuations, which is a contempt of our court system and of our legal processes. This whole issue of security barriers has been hyped up. A lot of Indians have bought this, but just give me half a minute. If you look at the U.S. Embassy and its 3 compounds, there are 9 roads surrounding the 3 compounds of the U.S. Embassy. On 8 of these, never have there been any restriction in terms of movement. Only one, which was between the main U.S. Embassy compound and the club facilities, which was at one stage blocked off, causing a lot of inconvenience to other embassies. There, the road has simply been opened. But of course, the U.S. diplomats who earlier had made this part of public space as an integral part of U.S. property could walk without worrying about the traffic from one part of the embassy to another. Now they have to watch out for traffic, that's all. but the security barriers are there, the police cars and everything is there. So let me conclude by saying that I don't think that the relationship is at a crossroad. The general direction would remain positive and forward-looking despite the difficulties. And you see, the very important thing which we are not keeping in mind is that India is not against the U.S. presence in Asia. That's a huge element, positive element in our relationship. The balancing of China will continue and will be in the interest of both countries. And India will remain economically attractive to the United States, come what may. Though if the United States thinks that they must have their way on every issue, that what they demand of India in terms of change of our policies, reforms and everything else should be done the way they want, that is not going to happen. Finally, there should be more realism and less selfishness on the part of the United States, and much better governance on our part and pursuit of sensible policies in our own interest, not in the interest of the United States on India's part. Thank you.